All right, welcome to Industrial Marketing Live. I'm Peyton Warren, a senior strategist at the industrial marketing agency Gorilla 76, and I am one of your IML hosts. Today, we are excited to have two of the top content creators on LinkedIn today get tactical about paid media efforts with us on that very platform. So Justin Rowe and JD Garcia, hello, hello. Um, Thank you so much for being here. Just one to start out.
Of
Really excited to
course.
see you. Yeah, and Justin Rowe is the founder, CMO, and Jonathan Garcia is the head of strategy at Impactable, a company that's made a name for itself as a top LinkedIn ads agency. Um, the story of your company's growth is just really cool to me, and I think it kind of aligns with a lot of Gorilla's philosophy on things. Um, and I think that's a huge reason why we're excited to hear from you guys today. You, like the industrial marketers that we have on the call, are practitioners. Like you're doing the dang thing. So you've learned by doing it in the platform yourselves, and you've been sharing those learnings openly along the way, which is just the exact energy that we go for on Industrial Marketing Live. So yeah, I just want to say, like, kudos to y'all for being so open as you've been learning and experimenting along the way with LinkedIn. But to get us started, Justin, Jonathan, first, do you guys want to just introduce yourselves? And I think it's also really cool how Impactable came to be, too. And if you might want to share a little bit of the backstory of your company, that'd be cool too.
Yeah, I can start. So I actually came from service, food industry was actually how I came up in my career. I discovered LinkedIn maybe 6 years ago, and I kind of fell in love with it. It was this powerful platform where I could network with other people and create opportunities. I realized back then, kind of the power that it had of finding professional people, and using that either for business or just for opportunity. Um, I, out of that, started a little side hustle. Actually, through LinkedIn, I became a part owner of a restaurant franchise, which actually gave me time and energy to do a side hustle, versus my previous job. And then with that little LinkedIn side hustle, it was a LinkedIn outreach agency. So we were helping other people kind of create opportunity from LinkedIn through a series of automated outreach and messaging. It grew to a full-blown agency and a full-blown job. And that agency was acquired a couple of years ago by a data heavy investor. A couple of years ago, we switched into, pivoted into a LinkedIn ads agency. Probably, how long have you been with me, Jonathan? 5, 4?
5 years in April.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Jonathan was one of the first people that, one of the main first people that I brought on as a freelancer. This was back before we were acquired. This was Lincoln Learn, but and we scaled the agency into an ads agency after the acquisition. It matured, it became investor backed. But one of the things throughout the whole experience was that we did our own kind of marketing, our own kind of sales development. I fell in love with marketing through trying to market my own company. And yes, we do offer marketing services. So that's kind of cool because when I learned new skills and new channels, like it could be an offering or something that we helped clients with. But really, I was falling in love with it myself. And I consider myself more of a broad marketer. So still to this day, I am a one-man band pretty much with marketing in our agency, except for the fact that because I get to hire, we have like 40, technically we have like 40 marketers that work with us. I do have a lot of help, but I'm still running our own marketing. I pretty much run my own LinkedIn ads channel, for our company, and I still have my hand in our Google Ads account and our programmatic and our meta and our email marketing. Like I just love to have my hands in it. I love to learn what you can do with it. So yeah, when we talk, and I fell in love, I guess, also with the idea that, as a scrappy startup myself and coming up through the ranks, like there was not good options and great resources for, cost effective. Coming from the restaurant and service industry into like marketing and working in with SaaS companies, like I thought everything was like really expensive and that there wasn't like accessible opportunity. So I also just kind of, YouTube channels, the Surfside PPC, and some of these channels became resources in my education because no one teaches you how to do this kind of B2B marketing that, even in school and whatnot, like they don't teach this stuff. So continuously, even today, Jonathan and I still have our hands in accounts. Jonathan is still learning and we bounce ideas off of each other and evolve our thought process and kind of painting other channels together. So yeah, it's kind of evolved into that. And now, yes, we are one of the largest LinkedIn ads agencies out there. And I think we'll always continue to be LinkedIn centric. But now the biggest thing I'm really focusing on now is marketing efficiency. How can everyone really is wanting to do more with less. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but I really do believe that when you know how the different channels work and you see how they can work together, there's so many opportunities to increase efficiencies and not to think of channels like in silos. And so that's probably one of the biggest things, like marketing as an ecosystem is one of the biggest things I really focus on right now.
But about me, like Justin said, I've been with him. It'll be 5 years in April, and it started on a laptop, like on my sofa, and now I'm sitting in this cold office that almost echoes when I talk. So that's kind of cool. But me and my team are kind of like the gatekeeper. So when people are interested in working with us, we have that conversation with them, and it's not always like yeah, hey, you should work with us. It's more about, is LinkedIn the right channel for you? And then would we be like a good partner for one another? So a lot of times I tell people no, or we tell people no, because it doesn't make sense to just start spending money or start investing directly in the platform if you don't have certain things that are in place. And having my hand inside of accounts and working with those and bouncing ideas off of the team internally and just getting that experience, that helps to have some of those conversations. And that's worked really well for us. Like we just keep it real with everybody, where you're at, what you're trying to do, if that actually, makes sense. And that's gotten us here.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Well, we had talked a little bit before this call, obviously, and prepared. But one of the things that we also talked about was how it would be fun to like ask the folks that are here live what they're working on right now as far as LinkedIn goes. So I'm just going to say that out loud here at the beginning of the conversation. I went ahead and posted a note in the chat if you're running into any challenges. Some folks have already dropped in a few thoughts. So please do let us know what you're working on. And we can definitely bring those into the conversation today. But I think one of the pieces where we thought to start was just overall campaign frameworks. And, Justin, you said it yourself, like folks have called this a very expensive platform. And a lot of the teams here are maybe getting their leadership to agree to experiment with paid social for the very first time. And they might have a shorter leash or tighter purse strings than the other. What advice can you give to the folks here who want to try something like LinkedIn, but feel like it's just out of reach or out of budget?
My first piece of advice would be, yeah, everyone usually thinks that LinkedIn's too expensive, and I think the misconception around there is it is. If you think LinkedIn, if you put LinkedIn in a silo, and then also if you don't allow LinkedIn to work with other channels, or if you don't have the proper kind of ecosystem ready to allow it to run. So one of the things that I think people do is they come from Google paid search as kind of a first foray. That was the first way I tried to market my company, even with a $500 a month budget, getting started on Google paid search, get that people are already searching for your solution, getting in front of that traffic makes sense. But the problem with that is, you can't qualify that traffic. You don't know if they're a good ICP fit or not. You're trying to guess their intent based on that search. And then the other problem with that is that it's highly competitive. If they are searching for exactly what you do, chances are they're looking at 4 or 5 other competitors as well. And you really just have that first impression, page, your website to make a good first impression, to close that deal, to try to make a good ROI. You go from that to like Facebook ads with lead gen form, and then you go email marketing, and then you get to LinkedIn, and you think it's going to be this transactional thing as well. So you run cold LinkedIn lead gen forms, and you're collecting these leads, but they're not booking calls with you, and they're not turning into revenue. And then the cost per call booking is really expensive. And so that's kind of how it goes for a lot of companies. So one thing I would say is LinkedIn ads is more of a middle of the funnel hero to me. So I wouldn't advise most people to start with a robust cold lead gen campaign. A lot of times, if you already have invested in paid search, if you've already invested in SEO, some organic, Facebook, anything else, you already have website traffic. One of the biggest superpowers of LinkedIn ads to me is that it can pick up on all your website traffic, and then it can layer on qualifying filters on top of that to actually clean and qualify your existing website traffic and just retarget good ICP fit prospects who are in your warm ecosystem. So just pushing into LinkedIn retargeting as a first step to using LinkedIn ads would change the game as far as ROI. There's almost no way that isn't a positive ROI play. If you have a positive ROI LinkedIn or a Google Ads strategy, or even break even, and then you introduce LinkedIn retargeting, it should actually enhance the ROI of your paid search, your SEO. Because part of the problem is you have paid search, you have SEO, and then if you tried to retarget all of that website traffic with Facebook ads, it's all of your website traffic. It's a hodgepodge of traffic. It's over diluted, and it's almost not worth it. But if you can take all that traffic and you can just retarget people in these 5 industries you serve, companies of this size that have budget, position titles of this, or seniority level of this and above that have decision-making power, that changes the game. And then you could actually go back to Google and you could be a little more confident with your bids. You could bid a little higher or be a little more competitive. You could take a break even or even a loss there and convert them on the back end confidently. And it changes the game of how you can use your different channels. So yeah, if you just think of LinkedIn, I'm running cold ads, the cost per click is higher, the cost per lead is higher. Completely agree. It's an expensive channel. The other aspect I would definitely say look at is the quality of the clicks, the quality of the leads of LinkedIn. You have to look further down the funnel to see the whole story. Because if the leads are booking a call at a higher rate, if those calls are a higher quality, if they're closing at a higher rate, and if they're signing bigger deals, then the cost per click and the cost per lead might make a lot of sense based on the down funnel value of those. So that would be some of the initial things I would definitely get out there when we talk about LinkedIn ads being kind of too expensive.
So I think I have 2 questions from that, and other girls feel free to jump in. And one is jumping in. Someone else has asked this in the chat. I just lost it here, but basically goes to your comment about like the ecosystem. So like you're talking a lot about Google Ads. What other things do you think need to be in place? Like how can someone like build up that ecosystem to really make their foray into LinkedIn the right move or the right next step?
John, you want that one?
I was taking questions in the chat.
Oh, never mind then. I won't distract you.
Yeah.
So other things that you might want to have in place, because that's a good point. So first, I would say you should have some healthy website traffic already, and healthy could mean a lot of different things. Like if you have less than, I don't know, 5,000 website visitors on a monthly basis, or if the quality of that website traffic is really questionable already, then retargeting and filtering might not be as effective. LinkedIn works really well if you already have a healthy flow of website traffic. If you have a couple of other channels already at play, I really do love paid search as kind of a starting point, because that's quality traffic that has intent in it, that's worth retargeting. If you've mostly invested in SEO, organic, and some other things that maybe make your website traffic a little more hodgepodge, lower quality, then LinkedIn might not be able to extract as much value out of that. And then the other thing would be, obviously, I think you need to have a website that converts. that conveys the level of trust. You're getting high quality traffic to your website. But there's so many things. I mean, as an advertising agency, and even as like just a basic marketer, you realize there's so many things that depend on other things that are out of your control. So I can get the perfect prospects, like even if you got tens of thousands of the perfect prospects to your website, the website has to load quickly. The website has to convey trust. The website has to speak to that demographic, has to have have calls to action that push them. You have to then have, obviously a retargeting strategy to stay in front of them and build trust over time. And so you need systems in place. You probably need to have, we find the people that have the most success have healthy website traffic, are using at least one or two paid ad channels already, have SEO that's been established for at least 6 months or so, and have a website that is already converting. So if you don't already have an ecosystem or a paid ad strategy on any other platform that's converting consistently on your website, then you might not have the necessary things in place to add LinkedIn, and LinkedIn might be really expensive in that case. Or I guess the final thing would be, if you're not really clear on who your ideal demographic is, or if you have too broad of a view of who you want to target, then LinkedIn ads could be a very expensive market research tool for you. Because what we find is some people will come and they'll say, hey, anyone who has a business and a website, they need my service. And then, $10,000, $15,000 later, we discover, hey, 80% of your conversions are coming from these 4 industries, these job functions, seniorities, and in these locations. And we were basically wasting our money in, all these other places. And so we spent all this money and we're upside down in ROI, but now we have a way better idea of who you should be targeting. And moving forward, we could actually spend that money a lot more efficiently.
I've got a question. When it comes to the messaging and the branding and things like that, the content of the ads, what things do you think companies need to have completely figured out about their branding and how they talk about themselves and be completely consistent? And what are some things that are maybe more subject to testing and experimentation through different ads?
I can take that one. You need to know what like your people actually care about, and the messaging and the type of content that you use will need to be appropriate for the portion of the funnel that you're running this. So like that question you asked, right? Like, well, what content makes the most sense? Well, it depends on what you're trying to do at that stage. So like in my top of funnel campaign, let's say I have a wide audience. Let's say my audience is, for who I want to go after, let's say it's 30,000 people. That 30,000 person audience, like I want to funnel them. I want to take that audience and I want to narrow this down into a smaller audience that has shown some type of interest. So in that top of funnel campaign, I have one goal, and that's to get content that gets someone curious enough to take some type of retargetable action. Like even if you have a great click-through percentage, let's say your click-through percentage on a website campaign using sponsored content, so like single image, right? Let's say it's 1%, which is great. That means, 10 people out of 1,000? I'm not that great at math. 10 people out of 1,000 are clicking on it. That means 9,990 people are not clicking on it for that. But like, what else are they doing? Like, are they going to your company page? Are they hopping over to Google because like you shared something that piqued their curiosity enough that now they want to go look you up? All of those are going to be retargetable actions. But in that cold layer, you want something that's going to pique their interest enough to get them to stop and actually engage. So like, what does that look like? Like, are you listening? Like, if you listen to sales calls and you hear a prospect mention something that's really important to them, or the sales rep says something and the prospect like perks their ears up, like these little nuggets of things that are going to pique someone's curiosity enough to take an action, those are things that you want to run in your cold layer. Now, in terms of like the brand and how that looks, like you want that to be pretty consistent because you want people to recognize your ads, especially as they move through your funnel. Like there should be some level of consistency there so that when they see it, even if it's a different ad, like maybe the logo's in the same placement, so they like know like, oh, it's this company. There's some things you want there from a consistency standpoint, but like, yeah, you should really know what your audience cares about, because if you're going to use paid ads to figure that out, that is a very expensive exercise.
I'd also say one of the things that I find, I had this idea and it sounds really simple, but it, a lot of times it can seem deep. For B2B and for more expensive like product services, I think too many people almost have the idea that, and we steal really good ideas for ecom. Like I love the ecom marketing. I think they're in a lot of ways very sophisticated. But one of the things that it's just kind of drilled into our mind is, okay, so they visit our website and then we retarget them. That's the idea. We retarget them, until they convert, and we stay in front of them. And that works for ecom. Like when it's a snack, when it's a shoe, like just keep the visual in front of them and they'll buy. For bigger solutions, it takes more than that. It takes trust. There's this huge chasm of trust that needs to be overcome before someone takes a deeper B2B purchasing decision. And so it's more than just retarget them. It's what should you retarget them with, and what do you really want to overcome? Anything I put in front of you in retargeting is going to overcome the timing objection. My logo is staying in front of you, so if timing is the issue, sure, anything I put in front of you will solve that. So I don't focus on that. I put most of my time and energy into the other thing, which is they don't trust me yet. They don't view me as the experts in this space yet. And I want to use my content to overcome that. So most of my retargeting content is trying to overcome that objection. And then you can get creative with it. Like I use third-party validation. So, if I had, like, for example, the recording of this, I could use this as a retargeting campaign ad and let people, it's one thing for you to make ads telling people that you're the expert in this area. It's another thing for you to be recognized as an expert by others. So podcast guest spots, expert interviews, webinars, those kinds of things, case studies, walkthroughs. I put out a lot of content that's, I call it, I guess, give the whole damn playbook away. Like I have a whole like YouTube 101 channel or playlist that's literally like, if you want to do, and I just dropped in the chat, if you want to know exactly like what we do for clients and kind of the playbook that we'll roll out and a 6-month roadmap of how to build a really custom retargeting framework, I'll tell you, I'll give you 100 sheet book on how to do it exactly for yourself. Because if you have the time to do that, you're not my ideal client. But if you don't have the time to do it, or you didn't realize it was that complex, that kind of content moves the needle so much on trust that when you do have the budget and you do need a vendor, you know exactly who you're going to go to, because that's who you're learning from to do your job better. So in a lot of cases, that kind of content, I think, makes amazing retargeting content, or just content in general. And I would focus on that a lot.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, Alan, great question. I think in terms of messaging too, one of the things that has come up and folks are interested in is this thought leadership ads. And like you were saying, it's like, you are trying to build credibility, and that can be with like the logo or with individuals at your company. And these thought leadership ads are incredibly powerful. And I think it's been something that's been really popular on like the LinkedIn space, but so many industrial companies haven't been able to do it because they don't have the army of organic content posters that they might need to actually get this off the ground. So yeah, any advice for folks on actually getting to a point where you could leverage thought leadership ads, or encouraging your leadership or the different spokesfolks to talk more on LinkedIn, to post their own organic content on LinkedIn that you could then repurpose?
I can add one note there. I answered something about this. So there's something about like I've heard this a few times. There's like an ego thing here a little bit, where like a leader like would feel good maybe about having their face like out there, or like kind of being like in a spotlight. Then I had one scenario where someone was struggling with this, and like he went and looked up some of the competition and found like peers that this leader had that were posting and some of the engagement. And that was like a little bit of the fire that leader needed to start getting, on board with it. But yeah, like some of the other comments I saw in here were like, you have people that have like a lot of network connections, but that aren't resharing or aren't like taking some of the company page content, and like you don't have buy-in from them. Like I think it's a matter of like the incentives. Like, what's the incentive for them to be able to do it? Like, well, yeah, don't we want the company to succeed, and we're all kind of aligned on that, but maybe that's just not enough for that individual. I don't have an answer for that. If someone does, you could share that. But for the leadership one, like taking some of those examples and sharing it with them has been one way I've seen that to work. Justin?
I would say for the thought leader ads, I hear that objection a lot. Is like, so for me, of course, it was easy. I have like 70,000 followers on LinkedIn. I already have an organic presence. And so then I go over to the ad side and amplify that. And of course, it works really well. I take my top best hits and I make them evergreen. And I already had an organic strategy. After posting thousands of times over the last 4 years, I have 15 or 20 posts I can post, and guaranteed if I post them, I know I'm going to get some inbound requests. It's going to get traction because it's almost like scientific. I have the hook, I have the topic, I have some juicy content, and now I can amplify that and make them evergreen with ads. But if you're just starting out, or if you're afraid to get started because you don't have that and you think you need it, I will say this. So if you take the same ads that you're running from your company page and your ad account, and you simply put that same text and image from a leader in your company and amplify it, it would do better than coming from the company. So even without any organic following, any current like network or engagement, just the exact same content coming from our personal profile, leadership in your company, then the company, it will outperform your company post. So don't let having an engaged following be a barrier, because it would still outperform that. And then it would actually help kickstart network growth. Because when you do that, even starting from zero, say you take a founder who's never posted on LinkedIn before, you start writing some content, and you start boosting that to your ideal demographic. They're gonna start getting profile views, followers from your ICP, and you're gonna start growing that profile into something. You're gonna actually have a leg up in getting into that like thought leader space. So I would say, yeah, take that mental barrier away. It would still be better, exact same content coming from the personal, and then you can use that paid, even a simple small budget, to slowly get your leader or founder or CEO more of a targeted following that you could then continue to post organically, because then you're combining it in the reverse. I had the organic and then I amplified it with paid ads. But if you have the budget to amplify an organic that needs growing, then you can kind of do that too. And at a point where you cut off the spend, that those people that are following, the CEO's profile now, they're still gonna get dominated by that content, but now you're doing it for free essentially, because you're using paid ads to funnel your ICP into following that profile, and now you kind of have them captured for free. It's the same thing I do like with my website visitors, and I guess this is another play. The buying cycle can be way longer than 90 days. And yet most of our marketing campaigns like focus on a 90-day window because that's convenient. And it's expensive to just stay in front of your website visitors for like a whole year. So usually most people don't do that. So one of my goals is to take, if a good ICP fit person visits my company page on my website, if I can take them and convert them into one of my organic communities in the next 90 days, then I kind of own them and can market to them continuously for free, essentially, over time. So I work into my retargeting campaigns. I try to push people to our YouTube channel. I push people to our newsletter. I push people to my personal organic profile, to our blogs, to anything that could be an organic pocket that even if they don't convert in 90 days, I then have an opportunity to stay close to them and continue to put valuable content in front of them. So I think the thought leader ads can work the same way, in that you're promoting a kind of a small community or trying to start one. And even if you cut off the spend, eventually it becomes a valuable asset you can continue to grow.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a nurture campaign. It's like everyone has been just like, I guess, like old school marketing. You think, oh, the only way to nurture is direct mail or email,
Yeah.
right? But when you have all of these channels where people spend way more time, like YouTube, folks are even commenting that they've seen Impactable ads on their Fire Stick, like different things like that. So it's like, I just think that's really, really smart. You're already putting content out in these different channels, especially if the folks on this call, you're a social media manager of some kind, and you're putting that content out. It's like, if you can get them to follow you in those other places and opt in to hearing your message, it hits different than seeing like that sponsored post. You're getting that leg up.
one word of caution on those though for the thought leadership ads. If you are using those in like your top of the funnel and you're using that as a way to generate your targeting audiences, because this happened to us, the way it works for brand awareness, and this may be a little technical, so if we don't want to do this, just tell me and I'll stop talking about it. But if you use a brand awareness or an engagement objective, the way LinkedIn dashboard calculates clicks is it does it based on chargeable actions, so chargeable clicks. For brand awareness and engagement campaigns, a chargeable click is going to be somebody that breathes on your ad too hard. A website visit campaign is going to be somebody that actually clicks and goes to your website. So they're two different actions. So when you're looking at your performance data, you're saying, well, why is my engagement campaign performing way above my website visit campaign? I should probably set my website visit campaign off because it's not getting me clicks or engagement or CTR. It's not an apples to apples comparison. Somebody that clicks see more on a truncated post because they were curious to read what you were saying is not as high intent as somebody that actually clicks to go to your website. And if you're not careful about that, you can dilute your retargeting audiences by including people in your middle of funnel campaigns or in your bottom of funnel campaigns that were just a little bit curious. You can dilute the audiences of people that were actually warmer because they did go to your website or they visited a pricing page or they took some action that was a higher intent. So just a word of caution on those, because yeah, thought leadership ads are like, they're new, they're exciting, but like you could have a second or third order of consequences that maybe you hadn't anticipated.
I have an additional question about thought leader ads, Justin and Jonathan. I've heard through the grapevine that LinkedIn is potentially rolling out thought leader ads that you can run from someone outside your organization. So it could even be like a social proof ad. Have you heard anything about that, like beta tests or anything?
Not
No.
yet. But I had this thought as soon as they came out that I liked them for that idea, but because yeah, it'd be one thing. The idea I had, I guess it would work with this, would be if you just had someone like a testimonial or a strategic partnership, they would just have to attach themselves to your company, not as an employee, but as like, it could say partnership, or you know how everyone does Pavilion and Rev Genius as like member, or something like that. And so as long as they're attached to your company page, you could then use them to boost or amplify and use thought leader ads. And how cool would that be to have, instead of just me running like a testimonial ad, I actually have the actual person make a personal post or a video about us and then sponsor that from our page. And it looks so much more authentic because the thought leader ads like don't actually look like ads right now. Maybe they'll evolve them more so that they're more like they look like ads. I hope they don't, but that would be really cool. But yeah, I haven't actually heard that yet.
Yeah, I heard that from AJ Wilcox, like interviewed someone on the LinkedIn product team and said that they've been testing that out. But I just was curious because I've been trying to get some sort of beta version or something on that. And I know you guys like talk with the LinkedIn team, so that's cool. Yeah.
We have an agency rep, so I don't know how long it took us. It was like 2 years. And we finally have so LinkedIn has, so you have an account manager, right? They're the ones telling you that to get your campaigns to perform, you need to spend more money. Everyone know who I'm talking about?
Everyone gets those.
Yeah, everyone gets those, right? And then they have a separate branch of like a team that just works with agencies, partners. So like we have gotten access to some pretty cool stuff, but we haven't heard that.
On the thought leadership train, do you ever work with clients that don't feel like they have a great thought to lead on and have to work to develop that? Like say it's a company where it's like, well, we just do it the same way everyone else does in this industry. And how do you approach that?
That one's so hard. They usually come to us first, and then if we can't figure that out, then it's usually like hey, you should figure that out, and then we should talk in a couple of months. Because you need that. Like let's say you're like DevOps or something, or let's say you're like an agency, and then I'm like, who's your target audience? And you're like small business owners in America. I'm like, so everybody is your target audience, right? Like you have to have some way to be able to differentiate yourself, and it's there. You have to look like really, maybe sometimes you have to look harder for it. It's there, but then like there's a Venn diagram for this where it's like, okay, this is this thing that like I do like really, really well. And then these are what people care about. And there needs to be like an overlap there. Because if your value proposition is like, hey, we care about our customers and we have the best team, guess what? That's what your competition's saying too. Like they're not marketing themselves as like we have terrible people who don't care about you. Like everyone else is saying that. So usually it's something that you need to figure out. And if you don't have that, and you've like this happens a lot with companies that have grown through word of mouth or have been like founder-led growth. They haven't done any paid marketing before, and they've kind of worked through people that have been referrals. Like, yeah, you got access to the CMO or you got access to the CEO of this company because you knew somebody there, but you can't take that and now go to the market with that. Or you've worked with kind of just like whoever has come in, and you don't have like a niche where you've really kind of focused on. Like you need to go and build that. And if you've done really good work with a client and you think like, hey, this is probably where we would be able to get the most success, take that and build messaging around that, and then to go and test that audience, or start there. But like you need to have it. It's table stakes.
It's also in my mind, like, it's the same reason that a lot of people don't get started with like LinkedIn organic content. Like, what do I really have to say that's different, and how could I really stand out? I have a slightly different theory. I mean, so yes, you could go down this route of like, okay, let's workshop this and let's figure out exactly what you do different and who you can serve best. That is an appropriate route, and you should probably take that. There's a separate area where even if you are no different, which I'm sure every company has something unique and some special place they serve, but even if you didn't, I have this kind of like this theory or mentality about LinkedIn organic that really helped me kind of grow. And it's this like ponds theory. So when you're approaching LinkedIn organic, or that use case that we just talked about, you're looking at LinkedIn as like this ocean, or the market as an ocean, and you're this little fish, and how are you going to stand out in this massive ocean? But that's kind of the wrong mentality. When you're starting out in LinkedIn organic, you have, maybe you'll have like 200, 500 connections, and most of your connections have like 30 connections or 50 connections. If you were to post, so you're not in competition with everyone on LinkedIn if you're getting started, and in business also, you're in competition with like, or you have this smaller subsect, like this pond that you can influence. So on LinkedIn, when you're growing, you have your 1,000 connections, your 2,000 connections, and your connections have usually an average of 500 or less. So if you were to post consistently, even if you were to post almost the same thing that the other leaders much bigger than you are posting, your connections and your followers do not follow the same people that you do. Their feeds do not look like yours. So you could actually very easily be the loudest, most visible, most expert person to your small pond, and you could dominate that group, and you could get business from that without having to feel like you're competing in the whole ocean. And it's the same thing with retargeting. There's been tiny companies who have retargeted the crap out of me that make me think that they are the biggest players in their space. But for all I know, I'm one of 200 people in the entire world that they're just dominating on every device. And they just, for like $50, they're staying in front of me for, the next 90 days, making me think that they are the absolute biggest players in this space. And they're not. But that's the power of like segmenting out and growing intentionally your network on LinkedIn, carving out a place for you. And then in the market in general, and with remarketing, positioning yourself as an expert to these people that you feel you could best serve. And even if there are bigger players going after the same people, they're not able to give everyone in the world this huge budget to dominate them the way that you could dominate 500 people. So if you think about it in that ways, like you really can dominate these small ponds, and it can be a lot more approachable than what some people might think. And you don't necessarily have to be so uniquely different in order to dominate like a small group of people.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's come up a lot in the chat because folks, and I mean, I see it with my clients here in the industrial space. Some of them, are getting maybe 500 website visits a month, so it's like their website retargeting is just not super, super big. But I think like what you're saying here is like you just have to continue to like look at ways to grow your audience, and doing that in whatever means necessary. And leaning into LinkedIn as an organic channel could be a really, really great way to do that, and support these retargeting efforts. One other question that we had, and I think would be a good place to kind of wrap up. I know we've just got a couple of minutes here, so it's a big question. Attribution. Justin's eyes just got so big. I mean, I just am curious. Like, so I know that y'all personally didn't even have a CRM at your company until, what was it, 2021 or something like that?
Yeah.
So, you know, I think one of the big things that we advocate for at Gorilla is like, you need a CRM so that way you can measure results and keep track of these things. I just would love to hear like your take on, you know, realistic attribution expectations and like how you guys got started even without the CRM and knowing that you were in the right direction.
I can take that. So initially, one of the things that I stole a lot of ideas from the e-com space. So when I started, even with my first $500 build website, I made sure I had a couple of things. Like if someone filled out a form, they get pushed to a thank you page. And then we use Calendly for call booking. And I figured out that you could just that you could do a redirect. If someone books a call, you can redirect them back to a call booked confirmed page on our website. And I could have these checkpoints. That was really important for us. And you could do the same in HubSpot and all these other tools that have call bookings that can redirect. And even for purchases, we use sales pages, or we would use like paying clients would fill out an onboarding or intake form that could push them to like a page that only paying clients would ever see. So I had these URL checkpoints on our website that we could set up in all of the channels for channel attribution. So I do think there's some structural issues that help you with attribution. The best you can do in my mind, like I've spent money on some of the most expensive attribution tools out there. I loved Oribi when it was out there. I've used Dream Data. I have Hockey Stack right now, and we kind of have like a little partnership with them. There's really expensive software out there, and the more you dive into it, the more you almost feel like it's unknowable. And so my overall thought is this, that you fight for channel attribution, structure your website so that you have these checkpoints, and view channel attribution as influence, because Google and LinkedIn and Meta will all take credit for the same conversion if they all had a touch. And that's fine. The goal isn't to get a unified, you know, which one was actually responsible. The goal in my mind is to see the influence and make decisions from that. So fight for channel attribution, implement self-attribution. So yeah, before we had a CRM, every Calendly call booking had required field of where did you find us, or how did you hear about us? And I put a lot of stock into that, like asking the actual prospect how they discovered us and what the most meaningful touch to them was, because they interpret that question however they want. That became like our initial, you know, attribution that we put a lot of emphasis on. Then you have channel attribution, and then you have software attribution as a third touch, something like Dream Data, Hockey Stack, or Oribi, where it maps out the journey and gives a weighted view of where it came from. I think those three triangulate the truth. And then at the end of the day, you kind of have to use your gut a little bit. You shouldn't make entire marketing strategies based on what you can cleanly track. Otherwise, everything's going to go to siloed HubSpot landing pages, and you're going to run nothing but lead gen campaigns so that you can track things cleanly. You shouldn't be running a marketing strategy based on what you can track. You should be creating a marketing strategy and then trying as best you can to track it and triangulate the truth. But yeah, that's kind of how we approached it. It was Calendly and Zapier bringing all that into a Google Sheet, which was how we saw all of our little call booking attribution. And we still do use that, and I still do look at that, but we use those other tools as well now.
LinkedIn rolled out something recently too that's going to be a little bit helpful for this. So they rolled out it's called CAPI conversion API. So for your CRM, so Pipedrive, HubSpot, Salesforce, you can set up a Zapier connection to dynamically sync that with the platform and then build conversion events based off of that. Because like you're not going to track every single conversion. Like it's not going to happen. A lot of people are going to see an ad, maybe be interested, go over to Google, look you up, and then maybe convert that way. And then inside LinkedIn's campaign manager, it may or may not show up as a view conversion, but you can't actually tie it to the individual, especially if they didn't specify it came from LinkedIn. But this conversion API will allow you to dynamically sync lists. And if you have HubSpot, in about 2 weeks, there'll just be a direct connection. You won't have to use Zapier, but you can connect that, and that'll give you a little bit more data. Because LinkedIn knows the exact people that have seen your ad, but they're big on user privacy, so they're going to obscure that data. But if you bring your list in and say, hey, these are the people. LinkedIn will show you if any of those people either saw an ad or engaged with that ad, and it'll help make this fuzzy picture a little less fuzzy. It's always going to be fuzzy, but it'll be a little less fuzzy. And you can do that through your CRM, or you can do that through static lists. So you can do like an offline conversion, just a dump from your CRM. Hey, these are all the leads we've gotten during the last 90 days. Load those bad boys up in there, build a conversion event around it, attach that to your campaigns, and you'll have some visibility into like what was working.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Well, I, for one, agree with what Grace put in the chat earlier, where she said that I'm going to have to re-listen to this conversation because I was here and I still feel like there's so much that I just want to like digest. I just really appreciate you, Jonathan and Justin, for coming on and sharing your knowledge with us and just your expertise in the LinkedIn space. So thank you so much for coming on today. The chat was also incredible. JD, thank you for you answered so many questions in the chat today.
I was trying to keep up.
Yeah, no, I mean, you did a great job, honestly. And I feel like if you're listening to the show afterwards and you want to like participate or like see the chat, I'm inclined to download it and upload this file to Slack for folks, because JD and Justin were putting a lot of links in there too. So if you want to see the chat from this episode, and you just have to join us in Slack, that's where I'm going to put it. So if you want to join us in Slack, you're not there yet, feel free to drop a note in the chat or DM any gorilla. We can get you guys added. And yeah, that'll be great. And then, yeah, I feel like I could do a whole nother session with y'all on how you got YouTube up and running and all this different stuff that you guys have been doing. So yeah, just thanks again for coming on the show.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So a little right before we sign off, I'll just like let everyone know, yes, join us in Slack if you want. Our next IML is going to be coming up here in mid-March, and we're going to be talking about landing pages. We've talked about that a little bit before, conversion tracking and things like that, but conversion pathways. But our thinking on landing pages at Gorilla has evolved a little bit in the last year. And so we're going to have our content team come on and talk about some of the things that we've learned and the things that we're changing. So yeah, looking forward to it. Thanks everyone for joining today, and hope you have a good rest of your week.